How I avoided COVID-19 with one simple choice and doing nothing.
Asian researchers Yu Hit, Ji Yut, Hang Yo, Hao Wang, and Ruhan Zhang, not to mention Zhifiang Sheng. Well, these are great guys, obviously, because they had the specifics and the reporting nous to actually figure it all out and what happened in COVID-19 in the early days. They looked at the severity of COVID-19, the establishment of what it was to have this host risk score. They looked at 487 cases outside of Wuhan in China. They looked at the potential high risk factors for contracting the disease in the first place. And of the cohort of these 487 people that contracted it, they established that the high risk individuals were those that actually had issues going on already. And that was hypertension. And hypertension is, of course, high blood pressure. So they found out that this high blood pressure actually was pressurizing certain people into being in the high risk category when they were contracting COVID-19, but also the possibility of death was higher with regard to this too.
So what really is hypertension and high blood pressure? And how can we avoid it all when COVID-19 is going on?
So the blood pressure is actually happening when both the amount of blood a person's heart pumps is up against the amount of resistance of blood flow into a person's arteries. You see, the more blood that heart pumps and the narrower a person's particular arteries are, then there's a higher likelihood of blood pressure occurring. A person can have high blood pressure, or as it's known, hypertension, for many years without actually having symptoms. Even without symptoms, damage to blood vessels can occur and be there, and your heart can continue and then can be detected. Even uncontrolled high blood pressure can increase a person's risk of serious heart problems. This can be a heart attack or even a stroke.
With high blood pressure, generally a person can develop, this over many, many years. But it can also affect nearly everyone eventually.
So as we age, we can have high blood pressure. But the great thing about it is, in general, that high blood pressure can be easily detected. Once you know a person has it, or once you know that you have it, you have this high blood pressure, you can work with your doctor to control it. Now I know during this time of COVID-19, there's going to be issues with controlling blood pressures, but also contacting your doctors, because they're inundated with issues. But it's really important, I suppose, for us all to know that most people with high blood pressure don't have these symptoms or even signs of it at all. Kind of similar, I suppose, to COVID-19 or what we're told about it, that we can carry it without actually having the signs or symptoms. So even if blood pressure readings reach dangerously high levels, they can actually, be helped in the long term. So a few people with high blood pressure may even have headaches, or they might have nosebleeds, shortness of breath, or other signs and symptoms. But they aren't necessarily specific and usually don't really occur until high blood pressure has reached a severe or life-threatening stage. But of course, the main thing is a person should see their doctor. Always see your doctor.
So when you actually feel as if you need to see your medical doctor, then, it's a time to go there, isn't it? And it's time to ask them about taking your blood pressure. But more than likely, you won't actually have to ask them, because they will do it for you. So with that in mind, if you have to ask your doctor, or for some reason if they don't actually just do it, remember that just because you're like 18 years of age, it's from then on a really good idea just to ask your doctor to get into that trend of doing and taking your blood pressure. Now, if you're age 40 or older, it's said, the science is saying that, you should be, very aware of taking it very regularly. every year at the very, very least. You see, they say that blood pressure generally should be checked in both arms, not just the left arm. And there's this kind of old wives' tale as such, as to say that, we can actually check out your blood pressure in your left arm because your left arm is nearest to your heart. But it should actually be done, believe it or not, on both arms. And this is to determine if there's a difference between one arm and the other. The doctor will probably, just look at both readings and frequently just compare the readings that you have on both arms and with the last time you were read and your blood pressure was counted. So there's a comparison going on there. It's not just a wild stab in the dark the first time you go there or the last time you've gone there. There's always comparisons going on, such as lifestyle, work, pressure, stresses, and so on. So there's all these things. These are the professional doctors, and they know their stuff. So with all of that in mind, this is how we can begin to avoid blood pressure and start looking at the risk factors. One of them is age. Now, I've mentioned over 40 years of age, but certainly from age 64, high blood pressure is very, very common actually in men, believe it or not. Women are more likely, it says, to develop high blood pressure a little bit later. Not much later though, at 65. Now these are the medical kind of statistics as such with regard to the readings of blood pressure. But again, if you feel you need to check it, go and check with your medical doctor. Also, believe it or not, race has a factor to do with this. High blood pressure is particularly common among African heritage people, and serious complications are said, such as stroke or even a heart attack, and even kidney failures can also be most common in people from the African heritage. Family history is another thing. High blood pressure tends to run in families for some reason or another. Of course, being overweight and obese, this is going to be a little bit tricky for somebody, because if you're thinking that you want to have lower blood pressure, you're going to have to start losing that weight. You're going to have to look at the obesity scale and the BMI. So that is what it's all about, to check out your weight, your height, and go and check with your professional. Physically active is another one. Really, being inactive has very few perks when it comes to long-term good health and blood pressure and all of that. So we have to make sure that we keep ourselves well in that regard too. Then tobacco and smoking, it's a no-no. It raises blood pressure and it's just not good. Same way with too much salt and drinking too much alcohol. Now look, during COVID-19 we can completely understand how people are under stress, and if they're having a drink or two at home and they're not driving the car, well, that's understandable too. But just remembering these things, because these are all the background issues that, kind of push us towards the likelihood of a heart attack or a stroke or even an aneurysm as such. Then there's heart failure that can occur. There's all these things. But on the positive side of things, it's all about trying to change our lifestyles. And below, as you see to my side, that is, below or above, you never know where it is, do you? With YouTube, you could have things anywhere. But you don't want to be 6 feet below. In fact, you want to stay ahead and you want to be above ground for longer, not just throughout COVID-19. So the lifestyle changes that are needed are, changes to reduce blood pressure in general. So if you cut out salt to take less than, say, 6 grams or 0.2 ounces a day, it's a good thing. Low fat and a balanced diet is also a very good thing. Plenty of fish and fresh vegetables, yummy. Activity, as said, physical activity, always a good thing. These are the things that make us, feel better, be better, and avoid all of the lifestyles that have pushed us and generations of people in the past to seek out more stress and have a more stressed existence, even with the whole stress of COVID-19 in the background.
So the question is, how did I avoid COVID-19 with one simple choice and doing nothing? So I've done it by giving up one thing. Now, if you can just stop one thing, even now, despite the fact that you're weeks into this perhaps self-isolation, you're actually going to come out the other side in a very good fashion.
You're going to build new habits, and our brains love new habits. So what was that one thing I did? That one little thing that I just started the first few days and, well, more or less the first weekend of self-isolation. What was that thing? Well, it was avoiding alcohol. You see, for a while now, every weekend I like a beer. And with that in mind, it's been, some of these things, well, one of these things even, to look forward to. But of course, once COVID-19 came, self-isolation rolled in, it just wasn't possible anymore to go out and have a beer, to be in good company. So, instead of drinking alone, I decided I'll just knock it on the head. I'd give it a chance to just detox out of my system. So again, I wasn't drinking every day, I was working during the week, all the way through the week. But maybe on a Saturday night, 1 or 2 drinks. What's wrong with that, eh? Winding down in a good way, in a social way. But then, the way I looked at it was, there was no socialness. See, I wanted to wind down usually before COVID-19, and when I did that, I used to have a drink with friends on a weekend. But then, when there was no friends to go out to, there was no point having a drink. That's the way I looked at it. So I decided not to have a drink, knowing too well that there would be stress, there would be pressure of just being involved in the whole COVID-19. Of just, even though you're at home, even though you're staying away and self-isolating, you're actually cut off socially in many ways. So I decided to just take a leap of faith and just stop the alcohol intake for the duration of COVID-19. Now, is that one thing going to help me? Well, yes, it's helped me already, in leaps and bounds. I don't have any problems because of that. I believe it builds my awareness throughout each and every day. Because it's not a regular weekend anymore. We don't have a regular week. We have one day after another, but we have to be extremely present in the moment to avoid this disease. So every time I put my finger down, I'm fully aware now. Not that I wasn't aware before, but I'm not allowing something, a toxin, to get in my way. Because the disease is trying to get its way. So I'm staying away from it. That's just one way. But I also do another thing. I also do my yoga and have a general relaxation routine. And it works. It's allowed me to stay sharp, stay clear, stay as stress-free as possible during COVID-19. So that was my general rule. I started. I didn't think about 2 weeks later. I didn't think about the weekend. I didn't think about 2 months later. But still, it went and I didn't miss it. Because for me, it was all about getting out there and meeting people, then having a drink. So, it's gone. But just for now, because we'll all get back to normal. But until then, why not get ahead? Choose one thing. Try one little thing and help yourself avoid COVID-19.